Welcome to the eBusiness Playbook podcast, proudly sponsored by Academy Global, where we help you go from theory to reality, empowering you to elevate your e-business. Join our open community at the eBusiness Playbook by Academy on Facebook and LinkedIn, and check out our training packages at academyglobal.com to find out more.
So you've probably integrated AI into your business workflow somewhere, right? Maybe it's optimizing your supply chain or refining customer support, maybe even, writing a big chunk of your marketing copy. The power is just immense. But there's a serious flip side. That moment the algorithm goes, well, toxic, or starts discriminating, or just crashes your systems. Suddenly, the liability lands squarely on your desk. The sheer speed, the complexity of AI, it can feel less like a tool, honestly, and more like an unguided missile sometimes. Welcome to the eBusiness Playbook. Today, we're doing a really critical deep dive. We're looking at AI governance, but specifically for you, the real-world business owner. We want to move governance out of the IT basement and put it firmly where it belongs, on the CEO agenda. Our mission today is pretty clear: show you the practical policies you actually need to build, and, crucially, prove how controlling AI risk translates directly into measurable, positive ROI.
Yeah, and maybe let's start by just simplifying the term itself. What is AI governance, really? Think of it as the rules of the road for your AI. It's the whole framework, policies, guidelines, practices, all designed to ensure your AI development and how you use it lines up perfectly with your ethical standards, legal requirements, and importantly, your company's core values. Fundamentally, it's the structure you build to minimize those big immediate risks like systemic bias, critical privacy breaches, and security threats.
Okay, that makes sense. Rules of the road, I get it. But look, time is money for business owners. Why is this a red alert priority right now? Especially if you're, say, a growing company without a massive legal department. What's the immediate, non-negotiable financial risk if I just ignore this for a bit and focus on getting things done?
Well, the risk is potentially existential. We're talking major reputation damage, crippling financial liability. If you ignore governance, you're basically skating on thin ice regarding four core principles. Principles that the market and global regulators are increasingly demanding for any AI to be considered trustworthy. These principles really are the foundation of trust. First up is transparency. Can you actually explain why the AI made a specific decision to a customer or maybe a regulator? Second, fairness. Are you actively working, and can you show you are to avoid biases that could lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes against any group? Third, accountability. Is there a clear line? Is there a human-assigned ownership for the AI's outcome? Human oversight is key. And finally, privacy and security. Are you really safeguarding customer data throughout the whole AI lifecycle, from the moment it goes in to what comes out?
And that focus on accountability, that's exactly why this lands squarely in the C-suite, doesn't it? It's not just a technical glitch if something goes wrong. It's viewed as a leadership failure, and leadership pays the fines, ultimately.
Yeah. Exactly right. And the legal pressure is mounting incredibly fast. It's not just general data privacy rules anymore. If you look globally, you see emerging laws like the European Union's proposed AI Act, or even things like the U.S. AI Bill of Rights framework. These are imposing really stringent requirements, especially around bias detection and data protection. And that demands executive-level attention, resources, planning.
And these regulations, they carry massive teeth, right? That's what gets the C-suite's attention. We already know about the heavy hitters like GDPR and CCPA for data protection. We're talking global rules that can cost your organization millions, potentially, if you're found negligent in how you handle customer data with AI.
Precisely. And the tricky part, the real controversy here, is that even a technically well-designed algorithm can inadvertently pick up and even amplify existing societal inequities. Think about it. If your AI learns from historically biased data, maybe old hiring data or lending practices data, it will amplify that bias. It could turn your operation into a discriminatory machine, even if that was never, ever your intent. And that demands a really rigorous level of oversight that has to be driven from the top down. That's how you ensure operational integrity and, frankly, promote equity. Businesses that get ahead of this, that adopt robust governance, they aren't just ticking boxes to mitigate risk. They're actively building trust, and trust is invaluable currency. They shift the internal conversation from, oh no, we're going to get sued, to something much more positive. Like, how do we build something trustworthy that lasts, that actually gives us a competitive edge?
Okay, so we've really established the why. Avoid reputational suicide, avoid massive fines. Got it. Now, let's get practical. I'm a business owner listening to this. I don't have an army of compliance officers waiting for instructions. how do I actually start building this governance framework? Do I need to shell out a fortune for a consultant to invent policies from scratch?
No, absolutely not. That's a common misconception. You definitely don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Organizations can and should draw upon established blueprints. Think of resources like the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. It gives great guidance on managing things like explainability, security risks, or look at the OECD principles on artificial intelligence. These provide the structure you need to start. But when you actually sit down to build your internal policy stack, your own rules of the road, there are really three critical components every business owner needs to implement. These move you beyond those sort of abstract principles we just talked about into concrete actions.
Okay, three components. What's the first, most fundamental piece? Where do you begin?
It really starts, and honestly ends, with data handling and privacy controls. Your policies must incorporate compliance with existing laws like GDPR, CCPA, whatever applies to you. This isn't just about ticking a box. It mandates transparency and really strict accountability in how you manage data. It also outlines the rights people have regarding their personal data, the right to access it, fix it, even erase it. Your AI, fundamentally, is only as good and as legal as the data foundation it's built on.
Right, that covers the data we manage ourselves internally. But what about, I'm picturing a mid-sized company maybe relying heavily on a third-party API for logistics, or maybe using an outsourced AI tool for marketing optimization. How does my governance policy stretch to cover the risks coming from that external vendor?
That's a perfect transition to the second pillar, vendor due diligence and standards. You absolutely must have rigorous policies for vetting third parties. It's non-negotiable. You should lean on internationally recognized industry standards where possible. Think about specific ISO standards, for example. There are standards aimed specifically at enhancing data management, algorithmic transparency, and security in AI systems provided by others. This is about protecting yourself from potentially catastrophic failures introduced by your partners. It's basic risk management.
Okay, yeah, that makes total business sense. Due diligence on partners. Got it. Now, finally, let's talk about the actual model itself. Let's say my AI is proprietary, built in-house. How do I actually prove it's being fair and transparent? To an auditor, maybe, or a regulator? How do I look under the hood?
And that brings us to the third critical component, model transparency and bias mitigation. This is all about auditability and explainability. Your governance needs mechanisms for detecting bias, often throughout the development lifecycle, not just at the end. And this is where some specific technical techniques become really valuable, techniques that enhance explainability for all stakeholders, not just the engineers. You might hear terms like SAP, that's S-H-A-P, shapely additive explanations, or LIME, L-I-M-E, local interpretable model agnostic explanations. Now, don't let the names intimidate you. Their power for the C-suite, for you as a business owner, is immense. They don't just tell you what the AI decided, they help you understand why an individual prediction was made. They can highlight which specific data features contributed most heavily to that particular outcome.
Wow, okay, so let's say I'm an insurance provider, and my AI denies someone's claim. I could potentially use a tool like SHAP to audit that single decision and understand, okay, the AI weighted their zip code much higher than their actual claims history, and here's the exact percentage contribution of those features. That sounds like it provides immediate evidence for legal defense, for audits. It's a complete game changer for accountability, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It moves you instantly from that dreaded, the black box said no scenario to having documented, explainable reasoning. But crucially, this technical transparency isn't enough on its own. It must be supplemented by meaningful human oversight, especially in any high-stakes decision-making processes. That human check ensures the system operates within the ethical boundaries you set.
Right. Okay. Let's address the budget reality, though. For many business owners listening, all this talk of frameworks, committees, oversight, it sounds like a giant, unavoidable cost center. How do we challenge that perception? How do we actually prove that spending time, spending resources on governance translates into a measurable, positive return on investment?
That's the key question, and you measure the ROI by fundamentally shifting your perspective. Treat governance not as an expense, but as proactive risk avoidance and, importantly, performance enhancement. The most immediate, maybe easiest ROI to measure is risk management as ROI, pure and simple. By implementing continuous proactive risk management, you are actively avoiding those potentially catastrophic reactive costs. Costs from legal liability, from security breaches needing incident response, from brand damage. Those are huge numbers you're saving. And this involves a kind of continuous cycle. It's 4 steps, really. 1, constantly identifying potential risks, security, ethical, performance issues through really thorough testing. 2, evaluating and prioritizing those risks based on their potential impact and how likely they are. 3, implementing controls, maybe stricter data privacy measures, enhanced security protocols. And 4, continuous monitoring, often using automated tools for real-time detection, backed up by regular audits.
Okay, so avoiding a massive, say, $5 million lawsuit is a form of ROI. I get that. Defense. But what about the offense? What about making the AI itself perform better? Or using governance to maybe access new revenue streams?
Absolutely. Good governance is also a performance enhancement tool. You need to track metrics that confirm the AI is actually doing its job effectively and fairly. For instance, think about high-stakes areas, maybe medical diagnostics or financial fraud detection. You must measure things like accuracy, precision, and recall. These tell you how well it's really working. And beyond just avoiding failure or improving current performance, adhering to robust governance standards can actually open up completely new, often highly regulated markets for you. Imagine if your organization can credibly market itself as a trustworthy AI provider. You can demonstrate transparency, show compliance with global rules. Suddenly, you gain access to high-value contracts, maybe in finance, healthcare, government work, that your competitors, the ones lagging on governance, simply cannot touch. In that sense, governance becomes a really vital competitive advantage, and that's a measurable revenue driver.
That's a really compelling connection. Building trust equals unlocking new market access. That resonates. Let's look at some real-world applications then. We hear about major corporations like SAP setting up an AI ethics and society steering committee. That sounds great, probably necessary for them. But if I'm running a mid-sized e-commerce company, do I really need a dedicated board like that? Or is there a scaled-down way to do this?
That is absolutely the right question to ask. You replicate the function, not necessarily the formal structure. SAP's success, and they had some great examples, like developing AI-powered HR services, specifically focused on eliminating biases during hiring, came from bringing different perspectives together, an interdisciplinary approach. For a smaller company, you can achieve the same function by embedding AI governance responsibility within, say, 2 or 3 existing senior leaders. Maybe a blend of legal expertise, operational knowledge, and technical understanding. You don't necessarily need that army of dedicated compliance officers. It's about integrating the responsibility.
Okay, embedding the function. And what about companies wrestling with the big regulatory changes like the EU AI Act that's looming? Any lessons there?
IBM is often cited as a strong case study here. They've built a very comprehensive governance framework. It features robust organizational structures, clear points for human oversight, even an internal AI ethics board. Now, for the smaller business, the key takeaway isn't necessarily copying that exact structure. It's about establishing those clear, documented points of human oversight at every critical decision stage involving AI. They're setting a high bar for due diligence. And similarly, you see companies like Google and Microsoft, they established their public codes of ethics, their AI principles, very early on. They did that to highlight their commitment to core values like transparency and accountability. And that practice itself, being proactive, being public and transparent about your values, that's a crucial, maybe more qualitative metric of ROI because it directly enhances public trust. And in the end, trust is absolute currency in this digital age.
Yeah, that really brings everything full circle, doesn't it? We've established AI governance is definitely a CEO-level mandate now. It's critical for managing that growing regulatory risk. We've outlined a practical policy stack covering data, vendor standards, and those transparency tools like Lime and S-Shape. And we've shown how it enables measurable ROI, both through that proactive risk control and through performance metrics and trust building.
Exactly. And looking ahead, it's just so vital to recognize this isn't a static field. It's incredibly dynamic. AI governance frameworks, your internal policies, they have to remain highly adaptable, responsive. The regulatory landscape, yes, it might seem fragmented right now in some areas, but it's only going to become more comprehensive, especially concerning data management and privacy rules like GDPR. The organizations that really prioritize security and privacy by design from the outset, they're the ones set up to thrive.
So we'll leave you, our listener, with this final thought to mull over. Many forward-thinking organizations are realizing that their internal expertise, while valuable, might not be enough to cover all the complex ethical angles of AI. So they're actively bringing in diverse external stakeholders, think academics, ethics consultants, even community leaders to help validate and reinforce their ethical practices. So the question for you is, given this dynamic regulatory landscape, the somewhat fragmented nature of AI regulation today, how can you best leverage external expertise to reinforce your own ethical practices, build that crucial public trust in your organization's AI initiatives? Because that external validation, that stamp of approval, could be the key to transforming governance from just a compliance cost into perhaps your most profitable differentiator.
For the complete PDF with all the insights from this episode, head over to academyglobal.com. There, you'll find the PDF, plus other valuable podcasts and resources to fuel your business growth and career success. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.